Well, we've done the extended play, KCIM Sports Rewinds. We've done the, what do we call it, the extravaganzas. I don't know. We've done, this is the shortened, this is the abbreviated version. We're like 10 seconds short of our half hour. So
that means we got to go at least 3 minutes over, right?
For you? Yeah, I believe that. So here we go. KCIM Sports Rewind here. Casey Miners, Jeff Blankman, myself, John Ryan with you here. Got a lot to get to today. Volleyball, of course, getting fun, man. We're talking state tournament time. Yeah. And a ticket can be punched tonight by the Kemper Knights. South Central Calhoun taking that next step last night. Football playoffs going on. Have the Tigers loaded the buses yet for Mount Vernon?
I don't know.
I think they left on Sunday.
They're making their way slowly in a little caravan across the state as they travel to Mount Vernon. That just shocked me when I saw that matchup.
I think it shocked everybody because I know Saturday morning on the coaches show I talked with Coach Rowetter, and they had downloaded film on Algona, Sergeant Bluff Luton, who they had already played, MOC. They had downloaded film on, maybe it was Heelan, not MOC. They had downloaded film on Algona. And then I reach out to him shortly after 10 o'clock after the pairings, finally came out. So it was probably closer to 10:15 because the website for the association was down Saturday morning. So I had to wait for them to pop up on their Twitter feed to be able to get them. But I reached out to him, and he's like, yeah, I had not downloaded Mount Vernon film to the
Well,
iPad
why would
yet.
you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's 3.5 hours to the east. You don't figure you're going to play it. It's always been like West River or Western Iowa.
Yes.
Well, that's my old South Dakota saying, West River. But Western Iowa and then Eastern Iowa. And they've rarely, if ever, crossed. But the association is really open to it now. And I can't say it's a bad thing.
I agree. I look at it, Casey and I were talking on the way back from, or maybe the way up to Lake City yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah.
But I sit here and I'm like, if you're going to put out your own rankings and seed teams like 1 through 16 or whatever it is, distance you've shown hasn't mattered. It should really be when you get to that round, it should be 1 against 16, 2 against 15, 3 against, and
that's
14.
the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah, if you're going to have those rankings, it should break down that way. Otherwise, what's the use of having those?
Because we have a certain 8-man pod, and it affects one of our local schools that has the 4th-ranked team, the 5th-ranked team, and the 6th-ranked team.
4th, 6th, and 7th.
4th, 6th, and 7th, all in the same pod together.
Out of 4 teams in one pod, you got 4, 6, and 7.
Yeah,
all in that pod,
with 6 and 7 playing each other on Friday night.
Yeah, and you're like, why?
Yeah, but for as many good things that there's that many questions coming out about the next round. So we're going to get to all that coming up here in a minute. But first of all, big news: you got a new quarterback in Iowa City.
Yeah, Brennan Zolvin actually looked good. I was that guy, though, after the game. We were driving to Sioux City because I was in Nebraska for one of my buddies' games. And I go, you look at the numbers, Cade and Brennan really were comparable. Brennan just had a couple more incompletions and a couple more yards, but Brennan's ability to run the football, I think, is the big X factor. Because Cade, with his knees, how bad his knees are and the surgeries he's had, he's just not mobile back there. And Brennan can avoid a sack when he needs to and stuff like that. So,
well, plus they're not going to let him run anyway, even if he had 10 or 20 yards of open field. They're like, nope, Cade, throw the ball away.
Right. And the only thing I will say is you see it a lot and stuff is that the defense game plan for a quarterback that wasn't mobile, all of a sudden they get a mobile guy thrown in at him. Now that's on film for the rest of the opponents this season. They're going to game plan at least a little bit for a potential mobile quarterback. So does his mobility have as much of a factor? And you just said the passing numbers were pretty even. Does the mobility have as much of a role against the rest of the teams as what they did against a Northwestern team on Saturday?
And I will say the passing numbers are pretty even, but Cade did play more.
Right.
So
a lot more.
Yeah. So,
but he wasn't. Sullivan wasn't great at Northwestern the year before, so it's
but he got the job done.
Right. Yeah.
So Iowa's got that new quarterback. Do we see Caden McNamara anymore?
No, he's injured. He's not on the roster this week. I don't know if what the deal is
but
there.
Do we see him at all this season? You think?
If Brennan keeps playing good and we keep winning, I don't know why
Right. You were winning, though, for the most part.
Yeah.
Cade. You were still above 500 at least.
Yeah, but still with crappy quarterback play. So
Should be used to that. You've had
no
a decade
kidding.
of it, right?
No kidding.
And Nebraska, man, they gave Ohio State a game at the Horseshoe.
They did. Proud of them.
Iowa played a great half against Ohio State, but Nebraska gave it a game.
They did. I would love to be able to get one of those games now instead of just playing.
That's the next hurdle for that program.
It is, but I like Rule's post-game press conference. I think it was about a 14-minute opening speech. That if you haven't seen it, you got to take a listen to it because it tells you what he's trying to do and what he wants to do and where I think that program might be headed. I know we're coming off of an embarrassing loss the week before, but for the guys to rebound the way they did, I'm really proud of them, and I'm happy with the direction things are going.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't he mention in the press conference like I wasn't hired here in year 2 to come out and beat Ohio State,
right? But he did say we came here to win. We don't play football to lose. But he talked about the fact that you guys have went through quite a few coaches where everybody expected that turnaround like immediately, and he's like, we're building this as a foundation that's sustainable. We're not trying to have that one splash year and then let things kind of fall back apart. And I do think that if you look within the game itself, you see that maybe things are headed in a pretty strong direction.
Is Indiana for real? I mean, it doesn't seem like they played some great competition, but man, they looked impressive against Nebraska. They're 8-0.
Played their best game of the year there, and then played with a backup quarterback against Washington this last week,
and won pretty handily.
They're the only team in the country that has not trailed at any point this season.
Yeah.
Do they play Ohio State? Do you know? I don't know their schedule at all.
Yeah, they do. It's about 3 weeks away.
Towards the end of the year.
Yep. So might be the week before Michigan.
Going to be interesting, I think, with that one. So I watched them against Nebraska. They look really, really impressive there. By the way, we had at one point my least favorite sports person of the week. Now we're going to change it around. I'm going to have my favorite sports person of the week.
Okay.
That is
I like the least favorite one.
You like the least? Okay, we might bring back the least here. My favorite, though, is Tyreek Stevenson, defensive back for the Chicago Bears. Way to go, dude. I loved it. Couldn't have happened to a nicer team. Yeah. He was the the defensive back, rather, that was pointing to the Washington fans. He was living it up. And then the play had started. Have you seen the...
I have.
Yeah, he was the one that tipped it. Yeah. To the receiver to catch the Hail Mary touchdown for Washington.
That may have had, him pointing to the crowd may have had nothing to do with the final outcome of the play. He might have been in that same position anyway.
Right.
But, boy, you look like just an idiot on TV there, because just celebrating. And as a professional athlete, boy, you should know better than that.
Yeah, it's...
He apologized on social media to the Chicago fans, but, boy, that one's going to be hard to ever live down.
It is. That'll be a reel that they'll play 20 years from now and still make fun of him. Yeah.
Somebody said he's about to have a real bad film session.
I saw something on social media where somebody broke it down and said he would have been better off, and Chicago would have probably won the game if he wouldn't have went in and tried to make a play on the ball. Like if he would have just stayed on his sideline, stayed over and celebrated, because the angle he took forced, like with the ball, with the way the ball was going, forced the ball into the air and into the arms. So he would have been better off just staying over there celebrating for the Hail Mary.
The question I have, though, is why did nobody stay back in the end zone with the guy that ended up catching the ball? I mean,
everybody goes for the ball. It's like, cover the guys, cover the receivers.
Yeah, you got 5 other guys on your team jumping for the ball. Somebody stay back to mess with the ball if it gets tipped.
Yeah, and I also saw something, too, is that people were like, well, when are people going to realize that on a Hail Mary, your best coverage is sending a blitz?
Yes,
is sending a blitz instead of, you can drop your guys back, but send that extra linebacker or send somebody instead of dropping 3, instead of rushing 3, you rush 5 or 6, and
you give that quarterback all the time in the world to throw that ball.
Yeah, and he floated around and floated around and then chucked it as far as he could. Yeah.
All right, here's a shocker. College basketball starts next Monday for the Iowa State Cyclones. I know it's insane to think that all this is going to be going on. That's the trivia question this week. Tony Bennett announced his retirement, University of Virginia.
Yep.
I mean, right away. I mean,
Right.
they're right on the cusp of another season. That leaves 6 active Division I men's basketball coaches that have won national championships. Who are those 6? How many can you name?
Bill Self.
Bill Self is one.
Yeah.
Dan Hurley, obviously.
Dan Hurley at UConn, yeah.
Big 12. Think of one of the Big 12.
The guy down at Baylor.
Drew
Scott
Drew, yes.
Yeah.
There's 3. Blue Blood.
John Calipari still
Yep.
coaching. He's won one.
Calipari.
Patino's
is another one. Yeah, you're only missing one.
Yep.
Big 10 team.
Tom Izzo.
Tom Izzo. There
and
you
he
go.
won the only time he won it was the year that they beat Marcus Pfizer in Iowa State.
Is that right?
Yeah,
All right,
they're not
so
in the championship, but they beat him. I think it was
Those are-
in the round of 8, and that was the year that should have been a Final Four matchup between those two.
Those are the only 6 college basketball coaches that have national championships to their credit.
That's hard to believe.
That is. That's.
Yeah.
I think like there should have been a lot more. And by the way, real quick before we get into local sports, Dwayne Wade statue. Did you see that?
No, it doesn't look anything like him.
It looks like Johnny Orr on an athlete's body.
Yes. Yes.
And if I'm Dwayne Wade, I'm like, what did I do to deserve this one, man?
Right.
That's really
Yeah,
bad.
it's like, how could you mess up that bad?
I
That was
know.
the first thing I thought was, wow, that looks nothing like him.
It
Yeah.
cracked me up, so I had to bring that one up. So let's talk a little volleyball. Of course, last night, South Central Calhoun, they had a tough matchup with Maple Valley Anthony Charter Oak Ute. Not sure if the teams had met up during the season,
Nope.
but it's fairly regional
Yes.
in its matchup. They shouldn't have been unfamiliar with them.
Right.
But they got off to a bit of a slow start, but recovered.
Yes, Casey and I actually talked about that at some point yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
That first ever matchup as South Central Calhoun against Maple Valley
Really?
Anthony Charter
That
Oak
shocked me.
Ute. Yeah, they're probably an hour and a half drive.
Yeah.
You thought at a tournament or something somewhere that they'd
Mm-hmm.
bump into each other, but according to Varsity Bound, that was the first ever matchup between the two schools. And yeah, I think South Central played well in set 1, but I just think that
I think
the
MVAOCOU
Rams
played their best.
played, really, really well. They were really crisp in that first set.
The team you saw in the first set compared to the next 3 was not the same team
No.
for MVAOCOU.
And it was interesting because Coach Schleichman and even Alexa Hollum, who came over to interview afterwards, said they saw on film that once a play or two didn't go well for the Rams, a lot of times it would kind of landslide a little bit from there in their losses. So they knew that if they could get them to make a couple of mistakes, maybe have an attack go into the net or sail long or have some service issues, which I thought they had a lot of service issues last night in those last 3 sets, that it could kind of become that trickle into a landslide, and it kind of did that, especially in set number 3 when the Titans won at 25-10. And then I also thought a key, I said in the pregame last night, you kind of know you're going to get big nights most of the time out of J.C. Gravy and Brenna McAllister at the net, and unofficially they both had 18 kills last night. But it's always can Sadie Wheelock or Caitlin O'Neill or Blair Schleichman give them that other hitter to take a little bit of the pressure. And I thought Sadie Wheelock played really well last night and gave them another hitter that the defense had to focus on. She also blocked well. J.C. Gravy had 2 real big thunder blocks in that fourth
Kept
set
momentum.
last night. Yep, and stuff against the Olmeyer girl that was 6'1", so she had probably about 5 inches on JC.
Wow.
Went up and got one-on-one blocks with her that helped seal a set win. So, and that was huge. And then Brenna McAllister seemed to take over late in a couple of different sets. Had 4 in a row to end the 4th set last night, and had 4 of 5 to end set number 2 to tie that match up.
If you've ever heard Brendan McAllister hit a ball, it sounds like thunder
It does.
outside. I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever heard a girl
Yeah.
hit a volleyball any harder than her.
Yeah, there's a different sound, sometimes when there's contact, and Brenna's one of those that you could be playing in a big gym with 8 different courts going on, and you'll hear that sound, and you turn and you go figure out where it's coming from because you want to see a kid that swings like that.
So they win over last night, and now for their efforts, they get Denver
Yes.
coming up, and a long bus trip to go with that.
Yes, they're at Iowa Falls on Wednesday. You told me that Iowa Falls has a really nice gym. You've been there before. So looking forward to checking that out. But yeah, Denver's ranked number 1. They play in a conference that's like the conference in the state of Iowa when it comes to volleyball. That conference tends to send 6 to 8 teams to state in about 3 different class sizes every year.
Wow.
Yes. So
who else is in that conference?
It's Dyke, New Hartford, and Grundy Center, and Appleton, Parkersburg, and Union Community, and that whole Denver, that whole area over there.
If you talk blue bloods, they're the blue bloods of Iowa volleyball.
Of Iowa volleyball, yes. So it's going to be a tough matchup. Not saying it's an unwinnable matchup, but South Central, I think, knowing
they have to play their best.
They have to play their best to have a chance to pick up that win on Wednesday night. I think they're capable of doing it, but Denver's really, really good.
You got to be focused. You can't even afford to let the few points go by in the first set to to not be in the match.
Yeah.
So,
but for the senior group, which is the vast majority of the girls that play, a lot of them have been now 4-year starters. This is their first regional final, so congratulations to them to get there. So I did kind of chuckle, though. Emma Schleichman, who had played there as Emma McKinney, she comes over and before the interview starts, she says, this is our seniors' first trip to a regional final. I'm really happy for them. And she goes, but they don't have any experience. And I says, but you do. And I get her on the air, and I'm like, Coach, I know you don't have any girls with any experience in a regional final, but what are you going to tell them about your experience? And she goes, I don't know. I went 0-4.
You're seniors. I mean, that's, you. This is what the goal has been the whole time.
Yep.
So, enjoy it while you're there.
Right.
But be focused, and you got to come out with that focus right away. Make sure everybody else is too.
And they will compete. They absolutely will compete. Yep.
Kemper Knights, they have Clarinda tonight at home. Again, very familiar team. And as we talked about South Central Calhoun not being familiar with their opponent, Kemper knows all about Clarinda.
Same conference.
Yep. Met them earlier this year. See them every single season. Got a sweep down there early, 3-1 down there earlier this year. But if I remember correct, all the sets, it was like 25-22, 25-21. So they were all really tight sets. So this is going to be a challenge. I think being pushed by a really good Des Moines Christian team last week is going to help Kemper, and they'll come in with the focus that they need tonight. So
this is for the state tournament.
Yes, the winner heads to the state tournament. I think the Knights trying to make their third straight state tournament after having, I think, a 1-year or maybe 2-year hiatus after having a run of about 8 or 10 straight years. I think they missed a year or maybe 2, and then now they're trying to make it for a third straight time.
And I'm not looking ahead here, but when is the state tournament, and when would that winner play?
Kemper would play Tuesday of next week, and you looked at times.
I think it was either 10. It'd be like they have any time playing between 10 or 12:25 on Tuesday, so they'll play that morning session.
Because you'd have you'd have 2 quarterfinals going on at the same time, and I think one of them starts at maybe 10:30, and the other section's like 12:15 or 12:45 or something like that.
So Kemper playing as the favorite, you would expect tonight. What do they have to do to make sure they win that matchup?
I think they have to serve, receive well. When Kemper has struggled this year against teams, they've struggled in the serve receive, which is kind of odd to say that, considering I think their back row is fantastic.
Really good, yes.
And stuff, but that's where at times they've struggled. They have so many hitters, they block well, they pass well, and it's not like it's a glaring weakness for them, but when they've struggled against teams and lost this year, or struggled and maybe pulled out tight wins, it's been some small serve receive issues that's been the case.
All right, so that game is tonight. Kick 106.7. Casey, you're going to be on the call on that one. 7 o'clock first serve, 6:45 is the pregame start time on that one, so good luck to the Kemper Knights tonight. We're back with more KCIM Sports Rewind, 30 seconds away.
As the athletes at your house prepare for hard work and fun of the season, remember that St. Anthony Rehab Services provides physical therapy for any sports injury that may sideline your member of the team. Sports injuries can plague kids of all ages and keep them from playing the sport they love. Athletes will be under the direct supervision of a certified and licensed healthcare professional in the newly renovated sports performance facility. If an injury is keeping your athlete out of the game, call St. Anthony Rehabilitation Services at 794-5000 for sports injury and treatment rehab.
It is KCIM Sports Rewind. Sports Director Jeff Blankman, Assistant Sports Director Casey Miners, and me. Talking high school football now. Tigers, they had an impressive road win on week number 9, earning their ticket to the playoffs. They're going to take another long road trip this week. They've been logging a few bus miles here.
Yes.
But talk about the win they had last Friday night.
Really impressed. They got off of that 2-hour and 47-minute car drive. I'm not for sure how long, over 3 probably with the bus, but 28-0 at halftime, scored on their first 4 possessions.
Were they just that much
They were
better?
just that much better in the first half. They had 21 offensive plays in the first half. 17 of them were running plays, and they just methodically moved the ball. They'd get a big run play, it seemed like, on every drive. But you had I think it was a 10-play drive, a 9-play drive, an 8-play drive, and then you had like a 6-play drive for their touchdown drives. And the 6-play drive was a shorter one where they got the ball around midfield. But otherwise, and then the defense was every bit as good as the offense. In the first half, I had Boynton Hall, Rock Valley, and I know my stats aren't official, but they had 34 yards total offense in the first half, and 20-some of that came probably on the first 3 plays that they ran. So the defense just absolutely shut them down after that, and then, Carroll comes out second half, Boynton Hall gets the ball first, and they score right away, and then Carroll goes down and score, and then Boynton Hall has a 3-play, drive that they cap with like a 63-yard touchdown pass or something down the middle, a little broken coverage, but then Carroll answers back and comes up with a stop, and never really were threatening the game. Once they got up by 28, the closest that Boynton Hall ever got was 21 and stuff. So that win and kind of sealed the deal for them. But they travel over to Mount Vernon, who I think is ranked number 4, 3 or 4, I think 3 and stuff. So yeah, you're looking at a long bus ride,
but nothing new. They've been doing it for the last 4 years.
Yeah,
so
every one of their district trips is a long one, and all their conference trips besides Boone is a long one in other sports. It's not like they're not used to being on a bus. We said it going into the postseason before last week that if you're a team in 3A with the way Carroll's playing, I don't care if they're seeded 14th and you're seeded 3. They're not an easy out. This is a really, really good football team right now. They can run, they can throw, they defend well. I think if I'm Mount Vernon and I'm the 3 seed and I start watching game film of Carroll, I kind of go, ooh. This is a good football team.
Yeah, I think so too. I know me and you have talked, throughout the weeks that if Carroll gets in, especially if you're maybe even one of the district teams like an MOC or a Sergeant Bluff, you don't want to see Carroll again.
You don't want to see him a second time.
So.
Yep.
Well, so Carroll High goes into the playoffs. It'll be their first game in the playoffs. Everybody else in their second game. First of all, South Central and ESAC bowing out on the opening weeks. But Arweva and Audubon both advanced along with Kemper. Start with Arweva, Audubon in those matchups last week.
I'll talk Arweva real quick, and then you had the Audubon game. What a win for them. They go down and just absolutely manhandle a ranked team on the road. Got up 24-0 or something like that. Took some turnovers early. And Wyatt Regaler, 211 yards on the ground, 7 rushing touchdowns, caught a couple of passes, and one of those for a touchdown. So he has 8 touchdowns in the game. They had 228 yards rushing in the game as a team, and he had 211 of it. So it was the Wyatt Regaler show on the offensive side.
You know how many running backs have not scored 8 touchdowns in a career?
In a career.
Yeah.
Yes. And then defensively, I think it was Tyson Von Glon, if memory serves. No, Devin Ehlers. I think he had 17 and a half tackles, and Tyson Von Glon had like 12 and a half tackles, if memory serves me correct. So those two guys put on his show defensively as well.
I mean, piggybacking off of Arweva, I think Lennox going to kind of key on.
Which is what Fremont Mills tried to do. They tried to key on Wyatt too. Yes.
But I mean, Lennox ranked number 1. It's going to be a tough test for Arweva, but they've been tested so far this year, and Audubon, I mean, could have easily hung 70 on East Mills. East Mills took advantage, I think, of a weaker district and got into the playoffs.
Audubon pulled starters in the second quarter.
10 minutes left in the second quarter, so 2 minutes off. They got up 38-0, and they pulled starters, and Sean told me, he's like, I mean, we respect East Mills too much. We're not going to come out here and, beat them by 70 or beat them by 60, so they pulled starters, a lot of and it's good for the JV kids or the second teamers, you get that experience in a state playoff game, but Audubon scored 4 touchdowns on my first 7 offensive plays. I mean, the first play of the game went 56 yards for a touchdown. So Audubon was, clearly the better team, and they got Woodbine coming up this week, so it'll be a tough one.
I really applaud Sean's move there, because a lot of coaches would have hung 70 on him, then maybe thought about putting in the reserves. Whereas, they got a lot of great quality time, and you never know when that's going to pay off.
That's how you build a foundation of a program that stays strong, because you get the young guys experience, and now they're hungry to stay going out. They didn't play 2 minutes.
Don't ever rebuild.
Yep.
Kemper also rolling in that first round.
Yeah, they did. We kind of wondered if Sheraton was not a real good team, and this is not taking anything away from Kemper, because they are a really, really, really good team. But you looked at that Sheraton district and you went, don't know how strong that is. And it sounds like their secondary was not very good, and Brock Baden kind of lit them up.
Yeah, picked them apart.
Yep, and picked them apart. Had maybe his best game of the season, and the Knights that game was over in the first quarter, very similar to the Audubon East Mills game and the Carroll
I think
game.
Kemper 41-0 at half in that game.
So that game was pretty much over at halftime.
Carroll's big nemesis has been Northwest Iowa. Now Kemper's got to face Northwest Iowa and Central Lyon, George Little Rock.
Yeah, Central Lyon knocked them out last year in the quarterfinals. They're not the same team. Neither team is, but Central Lyon graduated, 3 D1 players? I think.
For sure. Two are at Iowa.
Yep, that are over at Iowa.
One's Reese Vanderzee playing right now as
and
quarterback.
He's starting as a freshman and getting some playing time and stuff. But, but you got West Lyon, who's ranked number 1 and hasn't really struggled with anybody all season long, waiting on the other side of the pod.
So what does Kemper have to do to pick up the win? First of all, great advantage they have them at home.
They've got to play physical on Friday, because Central Lyon's going to come in physical, so Kemper's going to have to match or exceed that physicality. They've got athletes, Kemper does, and they can use their speed. But if you don't match the physicality that Central Lyon has, it's going to be a tough game. I think they win that game, but it's going to be tough, because Central Lyon's going to come in with good athletes, and they're going to play a really physical brand of football. And I think Kemper has to match that physicality.
So you mentioned Audubon, or Arweva and Lennox, rather. Talk about Audubon and Woodbine. How big of a matchup this is going to be.
6 against 7. And both of them spent a decent portion of the season ranked in the top 5.
Are they even like that on paper? Are they the same kind of teams?
Yeah. No. I mean, Woodbine's got a really good offense.
Yes. And so does Audubon.
But different styles.
Yeah, Woodbine's going to throw it all over the place.
I could have a game that's going to be 55 to 50, 66
at halftime.
At something. It could be a very high scoring game. But on the flip side, both defenses played good. I don't know if we have a better secondary in the area than what Audubon has. So that bodes well going against a team that likes to throw the football. I mean, they got 20 interceptions on the year as a team, and so I don't know if we have a better secondary in the area than what Audubon has.
And Woodbine's got a receiver, and I'm drawing a blank on the name
Landon Bloom.
now. Landon, that is
a 4-star.
He's a 4-star kid being recruited by some of the elite programs across the country. So that's going to be a fun matchup. You got a great secondary for Audubon against a kid that might be maybe, if not the best wide receiver in the state, one of the best wide receivers in the state.
And Audubon can't lull and just try to stop the pass, because Woodbine
can run.
Woodbine can run. As a team, they've got, I think, almost 1,400 yards on the ground and averaging 8 yards a carry as a team. So you gotta.
Their only loss to St. Mary's out of Remsen, and they played them pretty tight.
16 points.
Yep. Speaking of that, let's get the other games that are in those pods. In the Audubon pod, it's Cam and Remsen, St. Mary's, and that one. That's going to be a heck of a matchup. The other one in 8-man is Bedford-Montezuma. Then would be a potential matchup for Arweva. For the Kemper matchup, Western Christian and West Lyon in that other matchup.
I will be shocked if Western Christian wins that, because West Lyon has pretty much manhandled everybody they've played this year.
And in the Carroll pod, rather, it's Harlan at Algona. There's a little more regional matchup. So, in that pod, you got Carroll, you got Harlan, you got Algona, and Mount Vernon.
Yes. Harlan has struggled this year.
Harlan struggled this year. They lost starters a lot, just based off of what we've heard. They lost a lot of starters halfway through the season. Seems like a lot of them are back now, potentially.
Healthier.
If Carroll pulls off the win and then Harlan pulls off the win, Carroll will host that second round matchup. So you got to kind of root for it that way. But Algona lost their starting quarterback who's committed to Iowa State, so a 4-star kid. So it's going to be interesting to see how good Algona is without that caliber of player, but they still got really good kids on their team. So
what's the Algona quarterback name that's hurt?
Alex Mansky,
Okay.
if I'm saying that right.
Yeah,
but,
you are.
Okay.
Nebraska was recruiting him really
Yeah.
heavily for a long time, so that's why I wanted to double check if that's who I was thinking.
So Woodbine at Audubon, that's on KKRL. Arweva at Lennox, that's going to be on YouTube. Jeff, you'll have the call on that one. Central Lyon at Kemper, of course, and Carroll at Mount Vernon. Give me the barn burner on Friday night. Which one?
So just to clarify on the YouTube, it's not a video broadcast. It will be audio only.
Audio
so
only.
For the listeners out there that the amount of money that they charge you now to try and do a video broadcast in the postseason is we wouldn't be able to afford to go down. So so we're doing audio only.
So give me the highlight game in both of your guys' minds.
I think Kemper Central
or Woodbine Audubon. Just if you like offensive football, Woodbine Audubon will be the focal point. But Kemper and Central Lyon, the roles reversed, I would say a little bit. Last year Kemper had to go up there. They weren't the favorite. Kemper, they travel down here this year. Kemper's the favorite. So, and I think a lot of the kids that were on that team last year are back starting. So they might have a little bad taste in their mouth. So it should be a pretty good game.
And by the way, you got your wish. We're going overtime here, so we're past 10 o'clock. But
do want to let everybody know too that we announced all of the athletes and coaches yesterday coming to the Rewind All-Star festivities. We will announce the first team, second team, third team honorable mention volleyball, first team offense, defense, second team offensive and defense, and honorable mention for football next week. Plus our cross country team, girls and boys teams of the year, and our girls swimmer of the year. All that will be announced next Tuesday on the show.
And speaking of cross country, state cross country is this coming weekend. Not the greatest of forecasts for it.
No, and I'm going to have a lot of fun up there. So.
Don't feel sorry for yourself. Feel sorry for the athletes.
As a guy that ran a lot, if it's 40 and as long as it's not too windy, you're not bad. It's when you get done. But it's for us
I'm thinking more even rain.
Yeah, I know. I get to go stand in that rain though.
So the sports person of the week is Jeff Blankman for sacrificing the body standing out in the rain.
The kids, but I would rather run in rain than stand in rain.
All right, I'll work on the least favorite person in sports coming up for next week.
That would be me.
That is KCIM Sports Rewind.